Last night I had a crazy dream. Wish was granted just for me. It could be for anything. I didn't ask for money or a mansion in Malibu. I simply wished for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. First thing I do is pray for time to crawl. I'd unplug the telephone, keep the TV off. I'd hold you every second, say a million I love yous. That's what I do with one more day with you. One more day. Sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day with you. One more day, one more time. One more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. Leave me wishing still for one more day. Leave me wishing still for one more day. Me wishing still for one more day with you. One more day, one more day.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this place as we come together to say goodbye to Steve, who put down his fishing rod for the last time, leaving behind a trail of colourful memories. My name's Angela and I'm honoured to be here today to share this time with you, his family and friends, as we pay tribute to Steve and his life of 53 years. I understand that basically everyone here has had to travel to share this time with us today, from all over the country, including Newcastle, Perth, Bathurst and Sydney. Those who couldn't make the journey are joining us via live stream and are here supporting us from near and far, from as far as possibly Asia, the UK and Europe. And I believe that we have somewhere around 30 to 40 different logins on the live stream at this time, and among those are big groups of people. So who knows how many people are helping us celebrate today, but we know that there's quite a big group at Charlestown Bowling Club, and we thank you for joining us. It means a lot. If you haven't already done so, I ask that you please switch off your phones or at least turn them to silent and just be present to share this time. Because we are live streaming, this service is also being recorded, so we request that no one record or take photos because this is already happening in a professional way. My heart goes out to all of you, but especially to Kath, Steve's wife, soulmate and best friend. His parents, his children, Jared and Emily, and all the extended family. No one would wish to be here today, and we're never ready to say goodbye. But what better place to be to farewell Steve than somewhere where you can see out to sea, the beach, the beautiful places that he would have loved and that he wished to travel to. While ever Steve was working, he was always planning the next trip away, with the caravan and the boat, travelling this Australian countryside with you, Kath, by his side. This was his greatest passion, especially in the last decade of his life, and everyone knew that. It was who he was. The latest adventure ended a little sooner than planned, but nothing in life is really predictable, and at least Steve was doing what he loved while he was able. No matter the age or the circumstance, we're never really prepared for this moment, especially when someone is gone much sooner than we ever think they will be. While Steve's passing comes as a shock to all, and 53 years really isn't enough, we can only be thankful for the time we did get to share with him and the memories made while he was here. So today, the best thing we can do is to come together in a simple but meaningful ceremony to say farewell to him and tell his story. This time we spend together is really for all of you. It's to remember Steve, to allow your feelings to be expressed in any way that's meaningful to you, through words and music, with tears and laughter, or any way that's important to you. Steve was many things to many people over his life, and each of you represent a different chapter in the book of his life. Family, old friends, new friends, colleagues, community members. Whether you knew him as Stephen, Steve or Walshy, you're all important pieces of his story. Each of you today have shared different experiences with him, and you know him in your own way. His passing reminds us that none of us knows how long or short our life will be. So keeping him in mind, we should learn to make the most of what we have and do our best to live life to the full. It's not about what material things we leave behind, but the part we played in others' lives and the memories made together. Steve was born in Gundagai on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February 1971. His first years involved a few moves, but he eventually started school in Gundagai in 1976. When he was 7 years old, the family settled in Bathurst, remaining there for the remainder of his schooling. He completed Year 10 at Kelso High School before moving to Lithgow to take his first job with State Rail, cleaning train carriages. When he was accepted to the driver's course at the age of 20, he subsequently moved to Newcastle. Steve married Teresa in 1995 in Mayfield, and in the years following, they started their own family, with the birth of Jared in 2000 and Emily in 2001. They moved to an 130-acre property in Booral. Steve continued driving trains with State Rail and then Pacific National. When that relationship ended in around 2008, Steve returned to Mayfield. One fateful day in 2014, Steve met the love of his life, Kath, with whom he spent the rest of his years happily. When they weren't in their caravan or travelling somewhere, they lived together in Mayfield. Steve retired from work in 2021 after 33 years of service, something not many people could claim these days. Kath and Steve set up to spend the next several years travelling with their caravan and boat, but only made it to Lismore due to Steve's ill health. His last months were spent in Lismore Hospital Ward E10. The staff were fabulous and really cared and treated him as a person, not just a medical case. The family are very grateful for their service and care. Steve has only done a few different things in his life because he's worked so long in one place. But he had friends and acquaintances from all walks of life, and those of you who knew him well would have your own stories to tell of times shared. We're going to hear from a few of you today, and to start things off, I'd like to ask Woody, a work colleague of Steve's, to come up.
Oh, it's upside down. Good start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Andrew Wood, or as Steve used to call me, fucking Woody. Sorry for the language. And I had the pleasure of working with him for 14 years in Team 3 at Port Waratah. Steve had a variety of nicknames. He used to be known as Walshback, Big Man, Captain Pug Walsh, but we mainly called him Walshy. The first time I met Walshy, I honestly thought he was Mick Malloy's twin brother. After introducing himself, he asked, "What size shirt are you, Woody?" I replied, "Medium," to which he responded, "Give it a year, mate, and it'll be a large," laughing away. Well, the joke's on you, Walshy. It's now extra large. Unbelievable. I have countless stories about the big man that I could spend hours telling everyone about. Unfortunately, the majority of them are maybe not appropriate for today, but I'm sure they'll be shared over a few quiet drinks tonight. From the cake of soap in the coffee mug trick, the toasted cheese sandwich debacle, setting the long jump record in the MSB roads, the chicken nugget in the work boot story, the rats that got into his work bed eating his peanut butter, the cockroach in the pants incident where I saw way too much of the big man, to ex-girlfriends stalking him at work and breaking into his house, stealing all his meat. That was a good one. Walshy, you made work entertaining and a fun place to be. Shortly after I started at PN, Walshy became the team leader of Team 3, where myself, being a young 19-year-old, straight out of high school with an attitude problem, still got it, I tried to make it my mission to get under his skin and get a reaction from him, to which he always just laughed and replied, "Fucking Woody," or "Unbelievable." I only ever saw the big man get cranky a few times at work, the first being the infamous caravan incident, or as he used to say, caravan. Walshy had planned to go on a trip straight after work and had his caravan parked up the access road at Kooragang Island. I thought it would be a smart idea to put a for sale sign on his caravan with his mobile phone number, and then I teed up a few drivers to message him off the work phones, trying to lowball him on a price. I quickly learnt that with Walshy, you can mess with most things in his life, but not his caravan. But to Walshy's credit, he laughed it off, eventually, and stuck a sign on the back of my ute, questioning my sexual preferences. On the drive home, I was wondering why everyone was beeping at me and pointing at my car. Other notable times was the time Rucker in our team introduced him to low-fat mayonnaise. He got very cranky at that too. And a couple of memorable blow-ups with supervisors, which a lot of our workmates will know about. But that was Walshy. He loved the banter, the practical jokes, but he was a professional at work, a good shunner, and a great engineman. He always was the first person to help you out if you asked for help, and he would give you the shirt off his own back if required. Walshy also had a competitive side. On the golf course, the bowling green, or the pool table, Walshy enjoyed schooling us whilst absolutely taking the piss out of me. On the golf course, with the physique and dart hanging out of his mouth back in the days, he resembled a professional golfer called John Daly. Walshy was also known for the occasional meltdown. One day on the second hole at Merewether, Walshy hit a sand wedge straight into the water. Being the competitor he was, he proceeded to hit 3 more balls into the water, whilst the whole time copping extreme abuse from the boys, especially me. But the persistent bugger eventually hit the 5th attempt over the back of the green and into the bushes. Fucking unbelievable. Watching him spend countless hours on the computer manipulating the holiday roster, watching YouTube videos of caravans, boats and 4-wheel drive upgrades, Walshy never did things in half measures. When he decided to buy a caravan, it was the top of the line caravan. When he decided to buy a boat, it had to be a cruiser. And when he had bought a ute, he bought a bloody monster Silverado. Walshy loved life, he loved his family, his caravan, his boat, his tucker, his mashed potato, his beer, and of course the love of his life, Kath. In Kath he found a soulmate. He loved to do all the things that he loved to do. From going fishing in the luxury cruiser, caravanning around Australia, to cooking up amazing feasts at home, he was a happy man. The only time I ever heard him angry with you was the big flathead incident on the boat, where a certain someone accidentally stuffed up the photograph of the largest flathead he had ever caught. It took him a while to get over that one. But Kath, he absolutely adored you and be proud of what you have organised today for him. Whilst you're a larger-than-life character, you lived your life to the fullest. You mentored me at work, in life, and I wouldn't be where I am today in my career if it wasn't for you. Jeez, knew this would happen. You're a true gentleman to everyone you spoke to. And there'll be plenty of train drivers having a beer for you tonight, brother. Cheers to you, big man.
Thanks, Woody. And I'm sure those sentiments come from everybody else that he worked with as well. And I'm sure there are many of those workmates who'd love to be here. Some of Steve's friends have stuck around for most of his life, and a couple of his long-term mates have some words to share. So I ask Rob and Kenny to come up now.
Walshy, what a bloke, eh? I reckon a good way to describe Walshy was as a straight shooter who knew how to laugh. A man of integrity and loyalty, he always had your back. A big, powerful unit who was sweet and gummy on the inside. Do you agree with that, Ken?
Yeah, I agree, but I would say probably the Marshmallow Man. Big on the outside and squishy on the inside. I first met Steve when he moved to Mayfield. We quickly became friends, as did everyone that met him. He honoured me by being groomsman at my wedding a few years later. A small group of inseparable friends formed at that time in Mayfield, meeting up at the Beaufort or Walshy's, or in a big day, both. We formed a winning darts team together and a losing golf team together, but whatever we did, we laughed together. Now to Walshy's shed. I can't say too much, but it was a very relaxed atmosphere. That is, until the pool cues and the darts came out. Then it was on. Steve, very competitive. Steve and I kept the score from day one, and both games were upwards of 400 games, each of us with only a few points separating us most of the time. So it was always very competitive. We won't go into who won, but in the end it's only a number. It wasn't me. Yes. I have too many stories to tell about Steve. Yeah, like the boys' weekend down the Hawkesbury on a houseboat, but that was a whole chapter on its own. We had, as some of us were here with him, it was a great time. Yeah, and how we got away in his backyard having a motocross track in suburban Mayfield with that, and he couldn't even upset his neighbours with that. That's how good a bloke he was. But this is just a small part of Steve's life that I've shared with you today, as I could go on for hours. Because as we know, Steve gave so much happiness to everyone. So safe travels, buddy, on your next adventure.
I remember those good old days in the Mayf, and I reckon the first time I ever met Walshy was in that shed at his place on Margaret Street, probably about 30 years ago. He was super welcoming, and another thing I quickly noticed was that he always liked to talk people up. If he thought someone was a good person, he'd love to spread the word, and he really didn't like to say anything bad about people, and especially behind their back. That form of integrity was a quality I always respected immensely about Steve. And like many of us here, and those watching from other locations, and I know there's a lot, I always had a lot of time for Walshy, and I always listened to what he had to say. Even if our opinions differed, he still deserved respect and attention. He did have a serious side. He was opinionated, and he was always happy to share his perspective and stand up for what he believed in. But mostly, he liked to laugh. It was only a few weeks before he left us He was trying to tell me a story. It was funny. And I say trying to tell me a story because he was laughing so much he couldn't get the words out. He was in hospital and he had to leave a sample or something went wrong with that. I could picture the boring atmosphere of that hospital ward heavily disrupted and broken with his hysteria. I could picture nurses running, trying to hold him up in bed as he was falling to the floor in stitches. Crocky, it was funny. And at a time when he was about to have almost everything taken from him, no one was going to take away his laughter. That turned out to be our last laugh together, but we laughed for ages and it will last an eternity. This was Walshy. He didn't mind taking the piss out of himself. He always believed that if someone else was happy to take the piss out of you to your face, then it was a sign of respect and a certain way to know that that person liked you. Wow, the amount of hilarious sledging battles. Walshy was a seasoned fighter who was scarred with the wrinkles of laughter, and he nearly always had a comeback for you right on the spot. And on those rare occasions where you thought you'd caught him for words and seemingly won, he'd always revert to his old default and say, "Unbelievable," with a great smile of defeat. But even at that point, you might have won the battle, but a smart mate knew that the war was far from over. Walshy, you will always be a reminder that you need to laugh in life. Mate, you lived big, you loved big, and you certainly laughed big. You're a bloody legend, and we'll never forget your smiling face, mate. Walshy.
Thank you both. And now we're going to hear some stories about Steve from his family's perspective. So I would like to ask Kim, who's known him longer than most, to come up now.
For those who I don't know, Stephen was my older brother and my only sibling. So we grew up in Bathurst in an old terrace house mostly, in the middle of town, but we were never really townies, if you know what I mean. I remember Steve showing me, sorry Mum and Dad, how he could shoot his starlings with his air rifle from his bedroom, and the starlings were on the power lines. He taught me how to shoot a bow and arrow, and we used to go to some of the vacant lots in South Bathurst and I'd say aim for rabbits, but the rabbits were pretty safe. He eventually sold me his bow and arrow, and I got ripped off big time. I never managed to shoot anything. Growing up, we had a bit of a menagerie of animals in our little house at different times because Dad would bring home animals off the railway track. Steve had an eastern rosella that he hand-raised. This bloody bird, its name was Mixo, and it wasn't until writing this that I realised how absurd this was, because he named the bird Mixo after the disease myxomatosis, because my pet rabbit had just died of Mixo. And I hadn't put two and two together until now. He loved this bird. It lived most of its life free range in his bedroom. But I got my own back because I had a pet magpie who was a male, which I named Maggie, that hated Steve with a passion. So with much encouragement from me, Steve lived in fear of my magpie. As a child, before his brain had developed properly, he decided to support Manly Sea Eagles. He doggedly remained loyal to Manly despite much, much better judgment till his dying breath. He was always managed to find mischief, or it found him. On one occasion, he was apparently an innocent victim. He was riding his push bike and a dog bit him on the ankle. He was wearing his Manly socks at the time. And for some reason, the police came to respond to this at our house. And Steve was always quick-witted and good-humoured. And he told the officer that the Manly socks saved him, to which the officer replied, "That's probably what they were going for." I sided with the officer at this stage. As a child, he was a property mogul and an uncompassionate landlord at Monopoly, until I created some natural weather event that ended the game prematurely. He always beat me in Trivial Pursuit and Test Match. We never seemed to play board games that I was good at. He was naturally bright and he had a good memory. In Year 7 at school, he was top of the class, but the school style of learning was never his thing. He still loved crosswords, trivia, and read the paper cover to cover every day. We knew he was really sick in hospital when the newspaper crossword was not done. He devoured news and enjoyed learning and acquiring knowledge. There were several traits that Steve had that started young and continued all his days. One was his questionable cooking habits. So a memorable failure was his attempt at rock cakes when we were in primary school. We rarely baked, so when the recipe called for a pinch of salt, we had no idea how much that was. So we put in about half a cup. It was so disgusting, we gave it to the dog. The dog took one bite and drank all of her water and did not return for another bite. When Steve went to Fraser Island with Emily and Jared, he put so much chilli in this chicken dish and that nobody could eat it. Even the goannas wouldn't eat it. Emily says that he always would sneak around whenever she was cooking and tried to add more spices to whatever was going on. Growing up, Mum always made this curried rice dish, which Steve attempted to make on his own, which Em says was so loaded with sultanas it was disgusting. But Em now makes a similar dish without all the sultanas. And Jared recalls peppercorn rissoles, which was like eating buckshot when you're trying to spit all the peppercorns out of the rissoles. He'd also say he needed to check if it was poisonous, which is a saying that he got off Dad, which was always the excuse to have the first bite or sneak a bit of roast chicken skin or pork crackling. But his crispy skins on his roasts, rotisseries on the barbecue, curries and dampers were delicious and his specialties, not to mention the mashed potato. Another lifelong trait was his interest in cars, boats, bikes and pretty much anything with a motor. He bought his first motorbike and car as a teenager. When he worked out they were both lemons, he sold them to me. Again, I got ripped off. When he was a teenager, him and Dad were working on the Land Cruiser. They took the motor out and replaced it with a Chev. After several days working, Steve held up the differential and said, "Where does this go, Dad?" So began several more hours of redoing that. And with the kids, they bought a learner car together and then helped Jared with his first car. Jared wanted to buy the purple one with the spoiler, but Steve said to get the one with the red as the paint hadn't yet faded. So new gearbox and air conditioner were replaced. I remember his Tirana with some fear and trepidation. That was an infamous beast. He also had a Brock Special, which was too precious to drive. But when they lived on the farm, it meant he had unlimited space for his cars. There were about 6 vehicles at various stages of disrepair and lots of motorbikes when he was younger. He helped Emily buy the laser, again replacing the brakes, suspension, disc rotors, all bought on eBay and showing the kids how to do it. So Emily will give you a hand if you need a hand with any of that. Later, his passion extended to caravans. He could tell you the ampage, the GVN, the battery output, whatever he bought. Not only did he buy the top of the range, but then it had to have an upgrade. I'd love to tell you the details and the specs about that, but as soon as he started talking about that, I tuned out. His love of camping, caravanning and boating started when he was a child and then continued. So growing up, we'd go camping every second weekend at Wyangla Dam, Lachlan River, Ballubula River, and then longer trips to Barranjuk Dam. During the day, Steve and I would use the airbeds to float down the river or take it in turns of towing each other behind the tinny. But it was a bit of a trick to get the airbeds out in time to dry them off so you could sleep on them overnight, which was a bit of a waste of time because we always put so many holes on them, you ended up sleeping on the ground anyhow. Em and Jared also did the same thing when they were kids. When we camped together, Steve and I shared a 3-man A-frame tent from Kmart. As he got older, the setup was more elaborate and the toys more expensive. But the tinny still got a workout up until his last year under Stockton Bridge, and Emily and Jared used to stay overnight on the Sea Ray and barbecue off the back decks. Steve took the kids to Queensland for a 6-week trip, and I actually joined them for some of this trip. Then later on, going down to Tassie for 3 weeks, which was Em and Jared's first flight. Both kids went into great hysterics to tell me a toilet story, which I won't repeat here. You can ask them later. Local favourites were Frying Pan Creek, Mungo Brush and Mile Lakes. He loved camping, always had to include fishing, catching was always optional. Loved being in the bush, having a fire and catching mud crabs. He loved his family and he loved Kath with a passion. I'd just like to ask Kath to join me to share a few things.
Thank you. I'm Kath. I'm Steve's wife, and I'm going to keep Kim up here as a safety net in case I don't manage this on my own. Thank you, Kim. All right, we actually met on the 23rd of March 2014 on Honeysuckle 10 years ago. I remember this because Steve made a point of celebrating that day just as much as our wedding day, and always had a go at me because I would forget anniversaries. I didn't realise the meeting anniversary was as important as the wedding day, but I was very schooled on this. He was my lifelong companion, travel buddy, best friend, but this year, on that day, I received my last ever text from Steve, but neither of us knew it at the time. We actually met on an online dating site, believe it or not, and both of us shared some disastrous meetings that we'd had beforehand and had vowed that this would be the last one. And in fact, it was the last one, because we stayed together. We lived walking distance from each other in Mayfield, and it happened that we both worked for Pacific National at the time. I had heard of Walshy at Port Waratah, but I'd never met because I worked at King Street. From what I heard, he had a lot of respect from people and was very well liked. So I thought, well, that was a bit of a comfort before meeting him, that he was a really good guy. I had a bit of intel that he was worth a meeting. So we went ahead. Our first date, of course, I heard all about caravanning and trips of camping with the kids and with his family, and also how he wanted to do Australia one day. And I had travelled somewhat more overseas than caravanning, and we kind of got a mutual connection then, and we thought, oh, this could go somewhere. And it did, as you know. Military jets on this particular day were doing their show, and he looks up and he waves to the sky and says, "Do you like the show I put on for you?" And I said, "Impressive. What are you going to do on our second date?" And we instantly thought, okay, we've got some character here. I think there will be a second date, and we proceeded from there. Someone with a sense of humour, very nice change. One date led to another. I, at the time, had a dog called Yogi. He was my best friend. And as time, just like people don't want to introduce their kids too soon, I've got to give Yogi a chance to warm to this guy because he was a good judge of character. And then I met the kids, and I think I was approved of because of my dog. So I thank Yogi for that. Several dinners later at his place, he learned that I could actually make really good mash. Now, mashed potato was a key thing, as you've already heard from the others, so I kind of scored some points there. And also, he was cooking a silverside, and I said, "Where's the white onion sauce?" He goes, "Oh, we don't know how to make that." And I went, "We can't have silverside without white onion sauce." So I proceeded to make this sauce. So that's mash and white onion sauce. Tick, tick. All right. So we're getting on well here. And before you know it, we've had a camping trip together, the trip with the kids as a family to Tassie, and then he decided, "Oh, what do you want to do for your 50th? How about we go to Hamilton Island?" And I'm thinking, is this what people do? They go on holiday all the time. Cool, I'll roll with this. I haven't had something like that before. So next thing we know, we've bought an off-road van. You've heard all about that. And I had been a career girl, so I hadn't been on a holiday. I'd been 2 trips for 10 days in the whole 20 years before I'd met him. And then we had 3 months a year nearly holidaying, and it was a big change for me. Too many to mention. However, I did have some firsts with Steve, so I'll point them out. Believe it or not, I'd never seen snow. And we were sitting there in the house that was being renovated, and we get this news report that the snow's come early. And I said, "I'd never seen snow. How about we go?" And we just packed up, drove down, and went to the snow. And I'll never forget that, because I rolled up this snowball while he wasn't looking, and I pitched it at the back of his head, and it ran down his collar. And he thought, "You dirty gee." And I thought, "Ha ha ha, gotcha." And that was something I will never forget. We did Darwin together and went and swam with the crocodiles. Snorkelling, I had never done snorkelling before, and we did that in the Whitsundays. Caravanning to Cape York and the Gulf of Carpentaria. Really solid outback stuff I probably would never have done on my own. And we did the Indian Pacific across to Perth. It's a pretty iconic train trip, so we did that together. So that's just a few firsts, a heap of other things. But one first for Steve, and I'm glad I did this. I took him to the opera, and I made him see Phantom of the Opera. It was a stunning location, because it wasn't in the opera house. It was outside, actually set on the harbour. Did he like it? God, no. But it was a great evening. The setting was beautiful. The ambience was beautiful. So I'm glad he actually did see one opera in his lifetime. As Woody and Kim mentioned, there wasn't a moment at home he wasn't researching the next trip, the gadget or upgrade, in between all the boating, camping and fishing. And we actually had never really thought of getting a boat until we went to the Gulf of Carpentaria and we did a fishing charter, and it was lousy. And we sat there and thought, we could get our own boat. Let's look into it again, on the web, researching. And he was looking at all these offshore fishing boats. No bathroom, no cabin. I went, come on, surely we can get a boat with a toilet and a cabin to sleep in. So I kind of hijacked his agenda there, and that's why we ended up with the Sea Ray, and I was always told how much I hijacked that agenda. That's why the current fishing boat is a real fishing boat. And we enjoyed that boat 3 nights a week, possibly, because I organised my contract work around his shifts. So we really did get a lot of memories out of that. And we did 6 weeks at Nelson Bay. I think, Rob, you came and joined us on one of those trips, and another 6 weeks at Pittwater, which was just beautiful. Lots of lovely memories. Steve could turn his hand at anything. Everyone's already said this, but he could tow a van. He could drive a big boat. He could fix caravans. He could back things. This wasn't a thing that Steve could not do. If we wanted to caravan, we'd do it. If we wanted to go boating, we'd do it. We'd learn it. We got our truck driver's licence together, believe it or not. I've actually gone off script and I'm ad-libbing. Sorry. So there was no such thing as can't with Steve, and we made a lot of fantastic memories. I will apologise to all his friends that didn't see him much in the last 10 years, but hopefully I have explained why. We were busy doing fun stuff. And Woody, I didn't stop him from playing golf. We were just busy, and I didn't have a personal life of his in my handbag, just for the record. But I would like to say, circling back to what you said, Kim, it sounds like he was a bit of a bogan. Didn't know that. Of course I knew that. But he did sound like a larrikin, and I wanted to get a little more serious here. Steve grew up to be a fine man, a loving husband and a devoted father. Ross and Shirley, you should be very proud for having raised such a wonderful son and friend. It's testimony to his character how many people have turned up to today's service, online or here. I won't go through the venues because Angela has already done that. I'd like to also thank, obviously, his friends and colleagues who've made the big effort to come here today to share your stories. I'm sure we'll hear more afterwards. Rob, Ken, Woody, Wooly and everyone who's showed up, I know he loved all of you. I say that and I mean it. You were truly great friends to him, and he often told me that. I just want you to know that. Kim, Jared, Emily, Chase, you rearranged your schedules to come here to see Steve and help me move the van when I was on my own and to get around after I busted my foot. So he would be really proud of all of you, and how proud he would be because you're still helping me out now, and that's gold. To my family, Tig, Pam, Elspeth, and especially Stuart, my brother, for being my shoulder when all this was happening and offering your home to us when Steve's journey was possibly heading there. Your kind offer took a lot of pressure off us, and Steve and I, he got very misty, just thankful that you made such a generous offer in our time of need. He told me he loved me every day, and I know he meant it. I loved him back. I'd never experienced such a wonderful man, and I'll cherish it forever. He was positive and strong. Friends and family will attest that he spoke only about getting better. He was so positive. He downplayed his situation because he didn't want anyone to worry about him. I was concerned that people needed to know earlier than he wanted people to know. And while he was facing his own physical, mental and emotional adversity, he was there still counselling and supporting other people. Just so selfless and so stoic. And my last words to you, Steve, sweetheart, is I always said that there's a lot out there we don't understand. So I wasn't ruling anything out. I'm counting on that because I'd really like to see you again. But until then, the memory of you will always be in my heart. You are very loved and very wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. You were always his beautiful wife. One of our beautiful moments in his last weeks was looking into your face and you saying to him, "Do you know who I am?" And he said, "Yes, you're my beautiful wife." I will always cherish that with you. He absolutely loved you. I had several heart-to-hearts with him when he met you, counselling him that he was aiming too high, that you were too good for him. Thankfully, yet again, he did not listen to me and he continued to pursue you. He was looking forward to spending your retirements together. And to Em, Squirrel, which stuck from when you were climbing trees as a kid, he was so proud of you. He was proud of your independence. While studying your HSC, working a part-time job, and still getting top marks in several of your subjects. Getting your P's on your first try, getting accepted into uni. He was so impressed with your achievements. And what great memories you and he shared collecting crab pots in the tinny while everyone else slept in. And to Jared, the Hoover, for finishing off everyone's leftovers. Steve loved a good nickname. You will always have the memories of your boys' trips, the two of you going away together. And as you've been living in Perth the last few years, Steve and I had frequent conversations about what a good man you are and how proud he is of the man you've become. You told me that he really pushed you to do uni as he believed you could do it and he wanted you to have a good job. He would be proud to hear that even though you've had your struggles, that you want to finish your degree and to honour his wishes. And despite being my big buffhead brother, we at some point moved beyond our childhood nicknames for each other. In our 40s, we were late bloomers, and we created new nicknames. I always knew that you loved me, and it melted my heart at the end of every phone call. I don't know if you ever talked to Steve on the phone, but you could never shut him up. After an hour and a half sometimes, I'd always get that "love you sis" at the end. I just know I will miss you deeply, and I know the rest of the family will also. Steve had a unique turn of phrase that made you laugh, in a tone that no one could replicate. When he laughed, his whole body bounced up and down, and you couldn't help laugh even more at how funny he found his own joke. He was soft-hearted and a soft-hearted man in a big body. I feel quite sure that if he could see you all here today and those who were watching online and hear me having the last jibe at him, he would have a one-word reply: unbelievable.
Thank you both for your beautiful tributes and memories. Yes. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Do forgive me, but my name is Douglas, but I'm known in the family as Tig. And I am Kath's mother's brother, so I am her uncle. Woody has already mentioned that Walshy loved his tucker, and we've heard from Kim about his adventures in cooking, and that is an interest that my wife Pam and I shared with Walshy and with Kath. The first time she brought him to have lunch with us at our home in Lake Macquarie, I thought I'd start the meal with a very classy dish called vichyssoise. It is really just a potato and leek soup, but it is served iced. Steve did not care for it one little bit, and he told me so. I said, "Steve, would you like it perhaps a little better if you had it hot?" And he said, "Yes, I think I would." And so he ate it hot, and the rest of us had it iced. Most of you will know that The Tempest was Shakespeare's last play. Though it is not as well known as some of his other plays, it is one of his finest. The few words I want to speak are not in fact the epitaph, but it occurred to me that it is a good epitaph, perhaps, for Steve. Our revels now are ended, and these our actors, as I foretold you, are melted into air, into thin air. We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
Thank you. That was so beautifully, eloquently put. And just on the spot, put everybody to shame, I think. I'm sure that there are so many stories that could be told today, and I'm sure they will be later on. It's quite hard to get up here and tell a story about someone who means so much to you. But each time you tell a story about your journey with Steve, you strengthen his memory, and the legend of Steve lives on. So please keep telling all the stories any chance you get. Groups of workmates, friends, people who share common interests. Keep talking about Steve, and he stays with you throughout your lives. We've heard some good stories so far, So now let's see some of Steve's life in pictures to help you recall some of the memories of this man you know and love.
I could stay awake just to hear you breathing. Watch you smile while you are sleeping, while you're far away and dreaming. I could spend my life in this sweet surrender. I could stay.
There is another screen on the side of the room that's not flickering if you'd like to watch that one.
Every moment spent with you is a moment I treasure. Don't wanna close my eyes, I don't wanna fall asleep, 'cause I miss you, baby, and I don't wanna miss a thing. 'Cause even when I dream of you, the sweetest dream would never do.
some great moments there. To treasure I've spent with Steve. It can never be. It might seem years, but Walshy packs some adventures into those years and so many memories. From little fish to big fish, I noticed. May not have got the big flat head, but you captured some others. These are the images that you should bring when you think of Steve now. As you recall a good time, allow yourselves to be thankful for having all those together. Remember his element, what he loved by his side, the person who he really spent the rest of his life with the most love of all. I know he was proud of his children, photos that he looked the happiest when you were by his side or with his kids. You should remember. I know everyone here today is dealing with the fact that we didn't get a moment. Going to have a little time now in reflection, provide an opportunity to reconcile ourselves with the opportunity if you wish. It's a flower or leaves. Say your little goodbyes, Steve.
Another turn for to go. So make us stop this. That's the noise. Not allowed. It's unpredictable, but in the end it's right. Help you at the time of your life. It's something unpredictable in the end at the time of your life. When that shine
say our farewells to Steve from and allow him to go on his next little adventure. We've paid to him through stories, memory, pictures, and stopped to appreciate the parts and so matters during his time here. We saw his face, heard her, gone on all of those adventures with him, and now we know that he has to go alone to find his rest. Although life seemed so much sweeter when he was here, nothing is lost that he gave, nothing destroyed that he has done. Remember all the times you shared with him through life's ups and downs, and smile at the thought of the moments as you say goodbye. No life is without its challenges. You've lived through these with Steve, and this is part of the journey with him that brings you closer. With love and respect, we commend Steve to his next journey. We commit his body to the universe from which all life comes and to which all life in the end returns. We set his great spirit free of the limitations of this world, preserving him forever in our memories. We are grateful for the life he lived and the part his life played in our own lifetimes. We cherish the memory of his character, his strength, his sense of humour, his friendship, and most of all, his love. We thank Steve for all the wonderful things he did for you, the times he made you laugh. We know that he has to be apart from us now. May you find strength in supporting one another, and may you one day find peace in your hearts. In a moment, we're going to take Steve on one last journey from this room. After we leave here, you're invited again to gather at the Shawsey, the Shores Bay Hotel, just down the road. If you're not sure where that is, we can help you with direction. Where you can tell all of the stories that you have of time spent with Steve in a more relaxed setting and celebrate what he means to each of you. I know that those who are joining us from other locations will be doing the same, so you'll be joined by all of those people, although we're not in the same space. Stephen Ross Walsh, Steve, Walshy, and all the other nicknames that you gathered over your lifetime. Wherever you're going, let's hope the fishing is good and you can go ahead and prepare the ultimate camping spot, ready for your loved ones to join you somewhere down the track. It's time for one last adventure. Would you please stand as we prepare to take Steve on one last journey?
Angela said, you're all invited to further reflect on Walshy's life at the Shores Bay Hotel. If you do get lost, don't ask for the Shores Bay Hotel, ask a local for the Shoresy. They'll know where you're going then. But it's basically straight along this road to the stop sign, turn left, next left, and the Shoresy is there on the water again. It was a place that Steve loved to visit. A place where he and Kath shared a meal, reflected on their day. It's a time for you now to reflect on your life with Walshy, bringing those memories to the fore and allowing you to navigate through those wonderful memories, a new normal in each of your lives without him. Steve will be now conveyed to the Lismore Memorial Gardens crematorium for a private cremation. So while you're sitting there having a drink, think of Steve